How about this NHL wildcard race this year, man? It's been wild. And not, oh my god, wait a second, that's a bear wild. Now, the story's different in both conferences. In the West, you've basically got one spot up for grabs here. And if you're a Pacific team, two. Unless you're Vancouver or Calgary, it really seems like it's wildcard 2 or bust. And even then, LA has 2 games in hand on the Canucks and the Flames, so wildcard 2 really is the golden ticket for those teams out in the West. Now, over in the East, it's a different story. It's Mad Max over there. Now, it's not as bad as it was a couple weeks ago where you had 8 or 9 teams competing for 2 spots, and all of these teams are anywhere from 1 to 5 points out of a playoff spot. Did I just say as bad as it was a couple weeks ago? What am I talking about? No, that was awesome. Fast forward to now, and it's not as much of a logjam, but still pretty tight. But I want to focus in on something that I find fascinating. For the first time in what feels like forever, we could have 5, maybe even 6 Canadian teams in the playoffs here, which is pretty rare. I mean, we saw 5 in 2017 with the Oilers, Flames, Habs, Sens, and Leafs. And I guess we technically got 6 if you count the play-in around in the 2020 bubble. But man, we haven't seen the Habs in the playoffs since 2021, the Sens since 2017. Getting Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, Winnipeg, Edmonton, and one of Vancouver or Calgary would be kind of like a shooting star. Even more so now that Montreal's kind of slipped away here compared to where they were a few weeks ago. Now the Sens had a bit of a 2015 Hamburglar type run going on with Maryline there for a bit. They seem determined to break that playoff drought, and they're putting themselves in a pretty good position to either grab third in their division or the first or second wildcard spot. Now, there's no denying it's going to be an absolute dogfight, especially I know the Bruins and the Rangers aren't what they used to be, but still, man, teams with that much playoff experience, star power, you got to keep an eye out for them. Then you've got the Red Wings, who literally had enough points to be in the playoffs last year, ended the season basically being as close as you can be to making the playoffs without actually making them. They've really turned it on here since McClellan came in. They were in that lower tier a few weeks ago, and all of a sudden they've shot right up into that second spot. We'll see if they can hold it together and not have the wheels fall off. That's kind of been the challenge with this era of Red Wings teams, but with what they went through last year, the new coach, the pieces they have, it could absolutely be them. Columbus has played really good hockey all year, and they're a legit contender for one of those 2 spots. Werenski's been all-world. He's been one of the best defensemen in the world this year. Marchenko's been fantastic. I know he's out right now, but Monahan has been just a solid first-line center for them. And despite the trade rumors last year, Elvis has not left the building. Merzlikins is still there. He and Tarasov both have a save percentage under 900, which probably is a bit of a concern. And then you've got the trick-or-treat bag that is the Habs, Penguins, and Flyers all at 55 points, and the Islanders at 57. Who knows what's going to come from those 4 teams? I mean, look what the Red Wings just did. And over in the West, like I said, I think it's going to be Vancouver or Calgary, but I also don't think you can completely sleep on Utah and St. Louis here. If those 2 teams don't stay on their game, it could end up being neither. The Canucks stuff this year has been well documented. I don't need to rehash it. They have been plugging away lately though, and because of it, they've got a 3-point lead on the Flames for that second spot, and are only 2 away from the Kings for third in the division. And for the Flames, despite all the never-ending trade rumors, the rebuild stuff, and a bunch of people at the beginning of the year predicting them to be pretty much signing a lease for the basement of the NHL standings, here they are, within striking distance of a playoff spot, almost 3 quarters into the season. And each time they go through a stretch where people start wondering, okay, is this where they show that they're in over their skis? They've bounced back, and they've stayed in the battle time and time again. Huberdeau isn't back to being the 115-point player that he was in Florida, but he's been better than his previous 2 years in Calgary. He's finally found some chemistry with Kadri this year after the past 2 years whenever they tried it just did not work. Coronado's taken a major step this year, and Anderson's been great at leading that back end. There have been some surprises that have really worked out in the Flames' favor, like Kevin Ball holding his own as a top pair defenseman next to Anderson and really helping him out a lot. Braden Pahal has been awesome and has played his role to perfection, so much so that it earned him a 2-year extension. Justin Costco Kirkland earlier in the year, and of course, probably the biggest one of them all. A lot of Flames fans knew that Dustin Wolf was going to be good, but this good this early? I'm not sure a ton of people had that on their bingo cards. There's a reason the team's leading scorer only has 41 points, yet they find themselves hovering around a playoff spot. By far the lowest total for a leading scorer for all 7 Canadian teams, by the way. With him back there, Anderson and Weegar anchoring that D-core, the kids continuing to be a positive bag of surprises, and of course the vets doing their part. Not only would quite a bit need to go right on this team, but quite a bit would need to go wrong for the other teams. But hey, They're in this thing right now. I believe we're going to see at least 5 Canadian teams in the dance. I don't see a world where Toronto, Edmonton, or Winnipeg aren't in. Ottawa's certainly not out of the woods yet, but they're solidifying themselves here. For Montreal, it's going to be tough, but hey, we've already seen them climb out of a hole like this once this year. And whether it's Dallas, Minnesota, or Colorado, I don't see them relinquishing that first wildcard spot in the West. So for me, I think the only way Vancouver and Calgary both get in is if LA drops. So 6 is still decently possible. 7 is a bit of a long shot, but also not impossible. But personally, I think we'll end up seeing 5 for the first time since 2017, not counting that play-in round. Let me know what you think in the comments. How many of the Canadian teams are going to make it into the playoffs this year? And outside of the pretty obvious in Toronto, Winnipeg, Edmonton, who do you think they're going to be? Thank you so much for watching. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next one. You're awesome.